All right, so we just went through the three different improv games. And the idea with improv games is you want to get the kids up, active, excited about the day, and get them really comfortable with each other. Comfortable with coming up with new storytelling ideas with each other and improvising too. Because we are going to be in front of the camera and they're obviously not going to be able to remember their entire scripts, you want to give them a few warm-up activities to improvise on the spot and stuff too. So those are the improv games. Next, we're going to go into the mini lectures. So for those of you at home, we're going to start with day one at the newsroom jobs lecture. So those of you here can flip to this side of the little worksheet that Chris put together. And feel free to stop me throughout to ask me clarification questions and things like that. So these are PowerPoint presentations, but I've tried to fill them all with lots of fun pictures for the kids to relate to, so that way it's not boring text on it. So, newsroom jobs, roles and responsibilities. People doing that. The next slide is a reporter. We talk a little bit about a reporter, what a reporter does. There's a definition at the top. And what we want to be able to emphasize with reporters is their storytelling. They tell us what happens in a given situation. They're investigators too, so they tell us how it happened and why it happened. And we're able to use that to evidence that we're going to do. News editor, a person who presents the news and often hosts the program. So those kinds of like your host of the show. I'm sure all of these kids will watch the news program before too, and they'll kind of be able to see these pictures and be like, oh, okay, that's the news anchor. And what I try and emphasize with Andrew is the open and close the show. You introduce the news story. So like at the beginning of the lecture, I also let them know, think about these roles and what you might want to say. The next, writer's research. Someone who writes the news story and looks for evidence to support it. So I kind of break it down in three different aspects on that. You find the story, you find evidence to support that story, and then you write it. That's the role of the writer-researcher. Directors, person who guides the performers and the crew. So we will have directors in this too, and ideas for everybody to kind of switch off so that way every camper has a chance to serve one of these roles. And with the directors, I try and manage it in a way so that our directors tell the reporters how to deliver the script, and they tell the camera operator how to frame the shot, and they call action. A lot of kids will just want to be directors so that way they can call action. They see that all the time. So with the directors, they work with everybody in the team too. Everybody works together on your news program in order to create it, but some roles have to deal a little bit more with technical stuff. So the director I like to say the director is in charge once we're ready to shoot, once the cameras start rolling. And the director can tell the reporter, oh, you're going a little bit fast, oh, maybe you should speak up a little bit, and they tell the camera operator, like, how to frame the shot. We go over that more so on the later days, and they call action. And we'll go over like roles and responsibilities later too. It'll make a little bit more sense. Feel free to stop me because I do tend to go fast when it comes to this type of stuff. Producers, person in charge of the production. So they assign cast and crew, they assign the story, they provide all production equipment. And you all, as instructors, you all at home, are the producers. So we should also mention that in this slide too, like, and your instructor, Mr. Antonio, is going to be your producer of the show. So camera operators, that is the person who's in charge of the camera, and we should try and organize it in a way that everybody who has that role is also responsible for the equipment with that role. So, the camera operators work with the director to set up the shot. The iPad will already be on the tripod, or will kind of just be tilting and going from left to right, making sure that they're in the shot. And they press record and press stop. They also protect the camera from getting damaged. So I like to remind students that you never want to leave anything unattended. Let's think about if you were actually doing this broadcast in the real world and you were out in the field somewhere shooting. If you leave the camera on the tripod unattended and turn your back and start doing something else, that's not the most responsible thing to do. You always want to make sure that if you're on camera for the day, you stay with the camera. And some of the younger kids might do a little better in these roles too, because all it mainly is pressing record and pressing stop. A little bit of framing here and there, but making sure that they're constantly with the equipment and at least standing behind it or looking at it, making sure that no other campers are like knocking it over or something like that. Next is audio technicians. This is the person who sets up the microphone and plugs them into the camera. It's pretty straightforward. We have a few different types of microphones that I'll go over later once I do like a little production workshop. And there's two types of microphones. There's a clip-on lavalier. There's one that you clip on to the shirt, and that's used for the news anchor delivery and the interviews. You should have 2 of those in each one of your kits. And there's a handheld microphone, and that's for the weather report and for the field report.
You said news anchor and what? Weather?
What's that?
You said the lavs are used for
The lavs are for news anchor and lavs are for interview. I believe those are the last 2 days, Thursday and Friday. So audio tech clips on the lavaliers, plugs the microphone into the camera, and make sure nobody trips on cables. That is the one role where there is like an extension cable that you're gonna have to hang like right on the floor next to the tripod. So again, kind of assigning the campers this responsibility too, and it kind of teaches them a little bit about being responsible when it comes to equipment or other things in life in general too. So if you're the audio tech, you have to make sure that nobody trips on the cables, that you have it in a place that's not all tangled up. And that's the end of the day 1 lecture. What are we shooting today? We're shooting weather reports. Yay, fun, yay. So that's that. Any questions on newsroom jobs? This is what we're doing on Monday, and if you have a small amount of campers, which a lot of us do, a lot of us only have like 2 or 3 campers on Monday, you are gonna have the freedom to incorporate other things in some of your other curriculum too. Because as I mentioned in the beginning, this is kind of a culmination of everything that Camp Brady Bunch does. A little bit of leadership, a little bit of public speaking, a little bit of performance. So you can feel free to incorporate some of the things that you found to really work for you in your curriculum into Mondays.
Question. Excuse me. So these first pages were going over roles and all. So would I have to repeat this on Wednesday when the kids come back?
Very good question. So what I suggest doing, you could do that. It's entirely up to you. This is your course and your students. But what I would suggest is having one of the campers who was there on Monday deliver it. You go through each slide, and the camper can say what each person does. And it'll work if they just read what's on the slide, or maybe you have some younger ones that can't read too well, then then they should be able to see via the pictures, like, oh, that's a reporter, and kind of think back to what a reporter does. And you can feel free to help them along the way too. But so it'll get them up and talking in front of people too, so that might be a good opportunity to do that.
When you say slides, Are we doing a PowerPoint with them?
Yes, these are all PowerPoint presentations. So for those of you at home, you should have the access to the PowerPoint presentations. They're Google Slides. But again, I try to keep them very simple with lots of pictures, so that way the pictures can tell a story onto it.
And we have access to a screen
Exactly.
and computer?
Yes, you get in your kit a computer and a projector.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
Yeah.
And a screen will be in the class.
Screen will be in the class. You could easily just project it on a whiteboard too, just to make sure that
Okay.
it's generally dark in the classroom. But again, the mini lectures is just kind of you introducing everything for the day, so that way everybody has an idea of what to do on set.
I did have a question, because I'm gonna have a pretty big class,
Mhm.
and what I noticed in my class is when one student is done, they easily get distracted and distract other students.
Mhm.
So for the directors, you said that they're going to help mostly when the camera starts rolling, if I'm mistaken?
Yes.
Okay.
You know what?
So
Let's actually
my question is, what do they do before when everyone's like prepping?
when everyone's prepping.
Like,
Very good question. I think it'll be helpful to go to our manual on this one. Let's go to the back of the manual. It should be on page 36. Production roll sheet. This, ideally, I'll send this to you separately, and you'll ideally want to have a copy of that to show the campers, so that way they know what role they are for the day. So let's go through the director's role first. So director is a person who guides the performers and the crew. And these are their calls. Everybody has their calls associated with their role. So directors, at first they say quiet on set, ready to roll camera, then they wait for the camera operator to say rolling, hence like recording, action, cut. Camera operator is in charge of operating the camera. They, number one, make sure your reporter is in the frame, that you can see them on your screen. They ask the director if they like the shot. Then they wait for the director to say roll camera. Once they say roll camera, they press record. And then they press stop when the director says cut. And again, make sure to emphasize to stay with the camera at all times. Reporter, person who reports the news and performs in front of the camera. There could be 2 reporters if you have groups that are bigger than 5. Ideally, you'll want 5 to 7 campers per group. So if you have a small amount of campers, you could put them all into one group if you have 7. If a little bit more, then you could spread them out amongst some of these other roles. So the reporter, their responsibility is to copy the script from the writer's composition book onto their teleprompter poster board. It's very difficult for kids at this age to read each other's handwriting. It's sometimes difficult for them to read their own too, but the idea here is that they can read their own handwriting better than someone else's. So if you have your own handwriting on the poster board, then you'll be able to read it a little bit better. So they practice their delivery and then they perform. So the reporter should be working with also the writer-researcher on the script to copy that. Audio tech, person in charge of setting up microphones and plugging them into the camera. If not enough campers, combine with writer-researcher role. That can easily be done together. So audio text directions. Number 1, they clip on the lavalier to the reporter, or they give the reporter the handheld microphone. Again, giving them responsibility with the gear. They plug the microphone into the extension cable. I'll go over this when we, at the end of today, when we do our little workshop, and I show you how to plug everything in. And then they plug that extension cable into a little splitter, which plugs into the iPad. And last, plug in headphones to monitor audio. We're actually not going to do that because I just was troubled